Somebody would go up to you and ask you, I hear there's a saint, he's called Vincent. How would you respond? What would you say about Vincent? There are many things written about him. He has a long history. He's the apostle of charity, and he began the Vincentian Fathers and the Daughters of Charity. But that's just touching the top, the profound result of what he has done is continuing today, not just 400 years ago, but today. Saint Vincent from France, and he became a priest, and part of it was to have a good benefice and take care of himself, take care of his parents, his relatives. But then, little by little, he had conversions. That is, he came across situations, and he responded to those situations, and that encounter with others, especially the poor, changed him. He had to rethink certain things. He had to use all the qualities, the character, the charism that he had, all the gifts that he had, in order to respond to the situation at that time. He was the father of the poor. He's also our father, in a sense, because of his charism. Father of the poor. What does father mean? What should it mean? A person that takes care of his children, his followers, especially father of the poor, taking care of the poor around him when they present themselves, or that he goes out and hunts for them, because many people are there and many times we don't know that they are poor. Vincent had a great quality. He was very active. He was very creative. When he would encounter a situation, how can he resolve that problem? He responded to the needs of the people. He had a lot of talent, and he was available for what God wanted. He was always with his ears to the ground to try to hear what God wanted from him, trying to find out what providence, divine providence, was leading him to do, especially for the poor. He was led by the Spirit. Followers of St. Vincent are called to be Spirit-filled missionaries. That is, hearing what God wants, hearing the Spirit speaking in ourselves and in the situations in order to respond to the situation, especially situations of the poor. We have several different very important moments in his life that made that change, that offered that change to him. One day he was in the sacristy, and in the sacristy he was vesting for Mass. And in walked some of the people, the parishioners, and he said, Monsieur Vincent, they called him Mr. Vincent, and there's a family here, the whole family is sick, and they have no food in the house. So after Mass, he mentioned to the people at the Mass, there's a family down the road a piece, and they have no food, and they are also sick, and they need help. He left it at that. Then he was going to check on the family to see what he could do a little later. And when he did finish the Mass, he started walking down. He met many of the parishioners, the people who were at the Mass, walking from there. They had heard that call that St. Vincent offered, that mission to help the poor. One of my visits to France, I walked down that street where the people were coming from. It's an actual situation. And the people responded. But here is part of the charism of St. Vincent, that he not only invited the lay people to help, but when he went to the house, they had so much food, so many people responded, and his response was, this has to be organized because some of this food will perish. We need to organize in a confraternity of charity. And he organized with the lay people this confraternity. That was in the 1600s. That same group, under a different name, is still functioning today. Begin something and continue with it and see the needs, the present day needs. That's one of the main things that St. Vincent did. A great organizer and responded to the needs of the poor. He was working, accompanied by the owner of one of these big farms. And the woman, the owner said, Vincent, Monsieur Vincent, there's a person here, a man who is very sick and he wants to go to confession. So what did St. Vincent do? He was available. He made himself available and he said, let's go and see. And he talked to the person and the person confessed. Later on, that same person told the owner of the estate, you know, if it wasn't for St. Vincent and I would die, I would have gone straight to hell. What? I was holding things back. I wasn't doing a good confession. And St. Vincent invited me to do a general confession, analyzing the sins of his past life, that he could be forgiven of those sins. And he was so happy. He mentioned that to the owner. I would have been condemned if it wasn't for St. Vincent. So St. Vincent thought about that. These different situations, experiences helped St. Vincent to develop his pastoral, his way of responding to the people. Everybody thought this person was a very good person, and yet the state of his soul was very poor. So he said, we have to talk to the people. And so he organized a mission. And he started preaching from the pulpit. I have climbed that pulpit in one of my visits to get to know St. Vincent a little better. And he started preaching about general confession. What happened was so many people wanted to make a general confession. The sermon touched their lives, touched their hearts, and they opened them up to the Lord so that they would ask forgiveness of all their past sins. That was the beginning of the congregation of the mission, my community. Preaching and bringing people closer to God and inviting them to do a general confession. Congregation of the mission. This congregation of the mission extends not just in Paris or in France, but all over the world, all over the world. St. Vincent, though, didn't stop there. He also organized, helped galley slaves, war refugees, orphans. The list is great. And he's trying to respond to the needs of the poor like a good father of the poor. He invites us. In a sense, we're here at Miraculous Middle Shrine. In a sense, we're Vincentians too. If you're coming for the Miraculous Middle Novena, in a sense, you're a Vincentian too. And we're all called to respond to the needs of the poor and be creative about that. Creativity is very important. One person in Paris heard a plea saying, oh, you Catholics, all you do is talk. You don't help the poor. It went to his heart. He said, hold on, that's not the way it should be. and he started gathering some 250,000 people participated in this mission during those years that we had it. And also that there were 3,000 communities that received the missionaries for 2 weeks in order to receive the instruction, in order to participate in the mission. And people continued. Now, we finished that 500th anniversary. The team that we organized is still working. I was there this past year, and this team is still working, and right now they have another aspect, the youth encounter. The World Youth Day is coming to Panama. And so some of those people are working on that, continuing that spirit of sharing. We are called to see the possibilities and be available and respond with the spirit of St. Vincent, especially to the poor. So I would like to ask you to please pray for this encounter of youth, World Youth Day. And one of the things that's developing is that Joe and Emmett, Joe Fitzgerald and Emmett Nolan was here, okay? They are both in the indigenous section of Panama, organizing a huge indigenous gathering from all over Latin America. They'll be sleeping on the ground. They'll be trying to do whatever they can in order to celebrate this World Youth Day in the spirit of St. Vincent, the World Youth Day, okay? I ask you, as we continue with the Mass, to pray for all those who are serving the poor. I ask you to pray for all those who are poor. And I ask you to ask yourselves, is God calling you in your own parish to do something to share God's love? St. Vincent, the Father of the Poor, we are also members of serving the poor. May God bless you, and please pray for me too.